Welcome to Power Fridays Live, the channel that aims to make a difference in the world through transformation, spiritual growth, and for entrepreneurs. Our vision is to empower individuals to live their lives with purpose and to make a positive impact on the world. We believe that power and purpose are the driving forces behind success and fulfillment in both personal and professional life. Through our broadcast, we discuss business strategies and techniques that can help entrepreneurs achieve their goals and take their business to the next level. We believe that through sharing knowledge and experience, we can empower each other to succeed and make a difference in the world. Now here's our host, Janelle Pulley.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening for Power Fridays Live. I have the award-winning filmmaker, world-renowned journalist, and a voice for the African American community with me this evening, Rahiem Shabazz. Welcome to Power Fridays Live. How are you this evening?
Thank you. I appreciate being here, and I'm definitely humble, to impart knowledge to our audience.
Well, thank you so much. As we are in the Love and Legacy series with Power Fighters Live for the month of
Mhm.
February, we're rounding this out with a conversation. I cannot let February go by without having the conversation about Black history, Black American history, African American history, whichever way that you want to, tweak the word and the language for recognition for the most that the Black Americans have done in this country, America, and throughout the world. There's nothing that we don't touch and do on a daily basis that doesn't have anything that says, "Oh, a Black man created that" behind it
Right.
in some fashion, and all the way down to the ability for us to be here virtually and on the World Wide Web. So I'm very excited to share that as well. So, but enough about that. Can you share a little bit about to the audience about who you are and like where you grew up, and a little bit about how does one become a renowned journalist and filmmaker?
You sure we got enough time for all that? To start out, I come of the age and in the midst of chaos of growing up in the Bronx and Harlem, the unruly streets of Harlem, and it was during a time in the decades of the 80s and the 90s. And it wasn't until the early 80s that into the early 2000s, I'm sorry, that I started to uncover my true self and my passion in life. And that was when I came to Atlanta. I marked my journey by coming to Atlanta, and I became an entrepreneur. But before that, I was a journalist, and I have written for a lot of what I will call urban driven publications that dealt primarily with entertainment and a who's who in the entertainment world. I either interviewed them or if it was a magazine, I wrote for them. I did that for several years. So naturally, I was a prolific writer. I wrote screenplays and I got into the film industry with my first film. It was a short film. It was called The Sun Will Rise. And that film did exceptionally well on the film festival circuit. It got me the opportunity to work alongside of Tyler Perry with the Tyler Perry Studio, and at that time, Roger Bob. I did that for maybe about 2 years, and then I went on to do my own thing. I started developing documentaries, and
Oh,
anytime you do a documentary, the subject matter should always be something that's near and dear to your heart. And so I developed this series called Elementary Genocide documentary series, and it dealt primarily with the school to prison pipeline. And that was something, hold on 1 minute. I'm sorry. That was something that I personally went through. As I said in the beginning, I came up in the unruly streets. Um, my primary education didn't happen in the classroom, it happened in the jail cell, unfortunately. Um, so that documentary resonated with the people because this is something that is prevalent in our community where you're essentially going from the schoolyard to the prison yard. You know what I mean? And
mhm.
that is the reality that happened with me. I was taken out in handcuffs from school, the first time I got in trouble, and actually wound up in a jail cell. And from there, it was a cycle. And
A vicious cycle. Yes.
huh?
I say a vicious cycle.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It was a vicious cycle, and I was fortunate enough to find myself. Some people don't find themselves and they don't find their purpose, and that's where you have that recidivism rate come in. Um, I'm, I want to say, over 24 years removed from incarceration, from being incarcerated. So that been my journey. So with the first documentary, it was an overall success, and I'm talking about I won several awards. I traveled all around the country, doing screenings, doing lectures, and it was a need for me to put out a second one. I thought it was going to be a one and done. Um, People expressed that they wanted to see more because you know you restricted to hour and a half of time to tell a story. And sometimes there's a continuation to that story, and there's so many, oh man, who is this calling me? There's so many elements to that story that I felt the need for another documentary. And that documentary was Elementary Genocide 2, which is
Hmm.
called The Board of Education versus the Board of Incarceration.
Oh wow. I
And
don't have that one. I have your first one, but I've got to get the second one.
yeah, the second one, and the reason why I did that because in the first one I focused primarily on young boys,
Hmm.
um, and then out on a lecture tour, I would have parents come up to me and say, "Well, you speak about young boys, but I have a daughter who's going through the same thing."
Oh
There's young
wow.
teenagers that are females that are going through the same thing. You need to highlight that. So I highlighted that, and I uncovered that within a certain given time, the last 15 years, there was a 30% increase in incarceration, a 300%, I'm sorry, increase in the incarceration rate of females. So we definitely
Wow.
wanted to cover that. And we went all the way back to the Brown versus Board of Education, a landmark ruling. And we asked the proverbial question, has this done us more harm than good? And we know it done us more harm, and since it's Black history, we're going to talk Black, right?
That's
and, and
right.
and we know at that time that 99.9% of the teaching that was being done in the rural South and anywhere in the United States when it pertained to Black children was by someone that looked like them. We know that for a fact. And when that ruling came out and it integrated us into the public school system, we no longer had that Black teacher that looked at us as their son or their daughter, that when we seen them, we seen the reflection of our aunties, our mother, or if it was a male, our fathers, our uncle. We didn't have that no more. We had someone that was alien to our culture, our norms, our ways, and really didn't have our particular interests at heart. So we know where that led us, right? When we're talking about miseducation, and you can look
Yes.
at Dr. Uh, he wrote the book The Miseducation of a Negro. Um,
Is that
I,
was that
my
Jawan
brain is freezing, huh?
Is that Jufu? Is that Dr.
No, that's
Shu?
not Kawanja Jufu.
Yeah.
It'll
I'm
come to me. It'll come to me.
I,
But this is where that whole entire concept come from. And Kawanja Kunjufu that you talked about, oh, he was ahead of his time because he spoke about the school to prison pipeline without calling it that. You know what I mean?
right.
Back in the early 80s. See, one thing that people got to know, right? And a lot of people think that I coined that phrase. I didn't coin that phrase, I popularized it. But
Mhm.
the elements that are in that documentary, if you read Kwanzaa Kunjufu book, he speaks about it.
Right.
you
Well, the
know.
miseducation of the Negro
Yeah, that's
is
it.
the father of Black history.
History, yes, yes,
It's
yes,
the
yes,
reason why
yes,
we're having
yes.
this conversation this month. Carter G. Woodson.
Carter
Yes.
G. Woodson. How could I forget
Yes.
that name? I said,
Exactly. And
man.
I was at a blank too, but I'm like, because he's from Missouri, I
Mm-hmm.
think. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so it's like
absolutely.
that's near and dear to my heart too, being from Missouri as well, because
Yeah.
and so yeah, Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black history. Yeah.
So that was the overall success as well. And then I knew doing the third one, it was going to be a trilogy. I knew that was going to be the last one. Right.
Okay.
A lot of people ask me when you coming out with part four. There will be no part four. You know what I mean? Because my whole thing is, if you didn't get it in one, then you should have got it in two. If you didn't get it in two, you should have got it in three. If you didn't get it in one, two, or three, you wasn't trying to get in the first place, right?
Right. This ain't no Fast and Furious
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
situation.
So the
Yeah.
last one is called Elementary Genocide, Three Academic Holocaust. And we wanted to show dealing with education once again, because everything comes back to knowledge, everything comes back to education, is that
Yes.
the um the assassination of your mind and your critical thinking is no different than the state's sanctioned execution of black bodies that you see in the street. It's all a correlation. And during that time, the social justice movement was big in the streets and things like that. So I connected all of that together and I ended that series right there.
Right, because when you
So,
look at the aspirations for the young black men and women who are being shot down with no due process, then that has something to do there. I see the media looking at, oh, mental illness to some
mhm.
degree. And did you find in your research that mental illness really played a big part in the reason for the miseducation?
Not so much for mental illness with the miseducation. I think a lot of times that they're misdiagnosed and giving psychologic drugs and things like that, psychotic drugs and things like that. I see that as a prevalent problem where our kids are being put in special ed class and they're given
Hmm.
medication when it has nothing to do with them mentally, you know what I mean? And the behavioral problems come from being in an alien environment. Naturally, we are communal people, you know what I mean? We can sit in a circle and learn. That's how
Yes.
that's where we get the cipher from. When MCs rap in the cipher,
Uh-huh.
that was a learning process where we all is in a cipher and we learning. To have the structural classroom setting where you have to sit for that duration of time while someone regurgitates something that they reading from a book is not a style of learning that is conducive to young black boys and girls. So
Mm.
a lot of misdiagnosis happens there. Now, mental illness is definitely prevalent in our community. It's something that needs to be addressed. Um, and I think that for most of the society ills that we see in dealing with mental illness, the medication doesn't help.
Right.
I didn't
My
say
belief
all the
system.
time. I said
Yeah.
most of the time. So
Yes.
there's certain things that we can do that where we have to bypass that medication
Right.
and get into how we used to do it. Because there was a
Yes.
time that we didn't use medication for no type of ailments. We used natural remedies. And that's
Right.
something that I think needs to be explored. But hey, let me give the disclaimer. I'm not no doctor and just do your research and read them
Yes.
books.
Right. Not yes. Yeah, let's do our disclosure. Seek out the help of who you think you can get the assistance from, who have a license in that arena. So thank you
And
so much.
someone that preferably looks like me and you.
Yes, someone
Yeah,
that
we
looks
gotta
like
keep
you.
that. It's Black History
Yes.
Month. We're gonna keep it all the way black. Black power to the last hour, right?
Right, right. And which brings me to your awesome podcast called Necessary Blackness. I like the Sankofa in your logo for the
Mhm.
Necessary Blackness podcast, keeping it all black. Can you share with us how you came about the Necessary Blackness podcast and wanting that to prevail?
Um, we have to be able to tell our own stories. You know, it's good that I can come on your podcast and I can go on different broadcasts and outlet, and we have the new black media. We need that, right? Because if if we only tell the story of the hunter, right, or the lion, you know, then our story never gets told. So we have to be able to tell our narrative and our story. And this was just an outlet for me to be able to bring other individuals on the platform as well as myself and tell that story, you know, unadulterated, raw, and just the truth. And I think oftentimes that we just don't have something that's just 100% black. You know what I mean? Like maybe I'll do a broadcast with someone that's not melanated, but it won't be on that platform. Any subject matter that's talked on there is dealing with Black society. And you know, we do live in a society where we're amongst people from other ethnic groups and other races, and we have to deal with them. You know, well, not me, but y'all have to deal with them in your interactions in life, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? But everybody except us don't deal with us where it's just 100% us. So media, it said media is the what? The fourth. There's three. What do they call it? Three executive branch of governments or something like that, and the media
Yeah.
is the fourth. You know, anytime a country invades another country, the first thing they do is start propaganda. And they take over or they destroy their media outlets. They're bombing. You know, go look at any war and you'll see that's the first line of attack, you know, is to spread the propaganda. Even during the Vietnam War, they was throwing down pamphlets, millions of pamphlets, you know, telling the people, trying to get the people on their side and you know, for them not to join the war. And then they're going to stop, you know, your communications, you know what I mean? Whether it's satellite radio, traditional radio, television, they're going to knock all of that out because the power of the word, you know? So that's why media is important. And
Mhm.
when it comes to particularly us, we got to have that power with black media.
Mhm. And when you say the power of your word, that's spoken in the Bible too, about how God created the
Absolutely.
world through word. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of power in your word and how passion. I loved your passion, Raheem. You know, I've known you for several years, but your passion when you get on stage and when you get that microphone in your hand and the clips that I've seen, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm hanging off of every word that you share because your position in the social justice movement. Can you share with us a little bit about that? Because I know that you're part of what's been created, the Foundation of Black Americans, or I'm not even sure how that works. I'd love to learn more. Can you just give us a little bit of information regarding that as well?
All right, let me correct you. When you say you're a part of the foundational Black American, like that's not a movement, right? That's lineage based. Like you're a foundational Black American, right? If you could trace your lineage back to the 1870s, right? If
Oh,
your people was enslaved in the wilderness of North America, then you're a
okay.
foundational Black American. You know what I mean?
Right.
Either
So my
if one
great
side of your
grandfather.
family
Hmm.
was enslaved and you can trace it back with the census, you're foundational Black American. So it's a lineage, you know what I
So
mean?
I'm a
Like,
I'm a Foundation of Black Americans.
absolutely.
Oh
Absolutely.
wow, I learned something new today because I know, we went through ancestry.com and I know my family was farmers way back in North Carolina. And of course, that's near Baltimore where the ships came in. So,
Mhm.
it's kind of like all of these ports and all of these areas, like in Savannah, Georgia. I've learned the
Mm-hmm.
history there, in the Gullah, in South Carolina, in Charleston, and then you have Baltimore, area where all the ships came in. So yeah, the people brought in the ships, and then they had to go out. So my lineage goes back to, I can trace back to, I know for sure, North Carolina, but we did sample and DNA sample my great
Mm-hmm.
uncle at the time. He was 100 years old, and found out that the sub-Saharan African nation
Mm-hmm.
is where our roots are. And before we
Okay,
came
okay.
over and
Yeah, and that's
matriculated.
another thing, being foundational Black American, right? We know that our genealogy goes back to Africa. That's a given, right? But what we also got to remember too, though, right, that everybody that's foundational Black American was not slaves.
Right. Oh, wow.
It was not brought from Africa over here, right? There was people, us, that was already over here. A small percentage of us came from Africa, but those that was over here was enslaved as well with the Africans that was brought over here. See, that part of history is never talked about. So that's why you have people that, when they say go back to Africa for what? Many of us was already here. So that's just to answer your question. But you said I'm a part of like the movement and what I do. And what I consider myself is a social justice warrior, right? When it comes particularly Black people, and I want to say that because we have a lot of freedom fighters, you know what I mean, and they fight for injustice. Wherever injustice is at, they're gonna fight for it, right? That's
Right.
good, right? I applaud them and I take my hat off to them. But me, I'm fighting for freedom, justice, and equality, specifically for Black Americans. You know what I mean?
I got
We
you.
do that first, and then we worry about everybody else. But until we do that, I don't have it in me, man, to fight for nobody else. I'm fighting for my people. So I'm one of what you would call a frontline warrior, right? And I fight for the rights of my people from racial discrimination. I fight for the rights of my people for reparation. I'm a reparationist. I believe that we need cash payments, lineage-based payments for those that are foundational Black Americans, as you say, or like I would like to say that are Black Americans, that our people toil in the soil right here in North America.
Right.
So and that's my stance. A lot of people know me for that. I'm not just known for that. I'm known as a
But
filmmaker, as an
yes.
author. I have a book that's coming out. It will be out very soon. It's called Radical Hope in the 21st Century. And in that book, we talk about Black society. And a lot of people, we had Jesse Jackson. He said, keep hope alive. You know what I mean? But everybody screamed that for the last 20 or 30 years. You need more than just hope. You need radical hope. Even in the Bible, it speaks about hope, right? It says those that have the hope of a mustard seed, don't talk about the mustard seed and having hope. Now we
Yes,
need
and faith.
radical hope.
Yeah.
So I go into a plethora of different topics that pertain to us in this book. And I let a few of our elders read this book, some of our grandmaster teachers that's amongst us today. And they was like, yeah, we got one right here with this one right here. So yeah, I'm talking that talk and I'm doing it unapologetically, because we in 2024, as you can see, everything is being revealed. The cover is being lifted, and what we are doing is we are taking back our power. And speaking of power, I was reading something today, and I know you talked about power and legacy, right?
Yes. Power Fridays Live, Love and Legacy series. We're closing it out because you speak on legacy as well. And
Yeah.
but power
So
is definitely first.
yeah, so power, right? I was reading this morning. I was reading a book by our grandmaster teacher. He's an ancestor now. His name is Dr. Wade Noble. Yeah, I looked that man up. Very powerful man. And I wrote it down what he said about power. He said, power is the ability to define reality and to get others to respond to that reality as if it was their own. That's what power is. To have the ability to get you and me to respond to it as if it was our own. We have to own our power. You know what I mean? And we have to take responsibility when we have that power. And that responsibility is to respond to our ability to do what? To educate our people. You
And
know,
that's what
because we
this
can't,
platform is about. Yeah.
yeah, because we can't just do it for ourselves. You know what I mean? We have to do it for our children's children and and the generation that precedes them and that's going to come behind them, because we can't no longer think in terms of, oh yeah, next year I'm going to be doing this next. No, 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 no. The open enemy, they are thinking 20 and 30 years in advance, and sometimes further than that.
Yes, and as the Bible says, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, and that means that the master teacher Noble, he left his legacy in his book for all to know, and you've left the legacy in your book for all to read
That's
and
right.
learn and know. So, that's what I love, being an author, and especially now being a black author, you really want to make that distinction. But I want to go back to something that you said a little bit earlier, and I didn't want to miss it, and I heard it when in American soil that black people were here. I'm like, I know someone probably heard you say that, and it's like, oh my gosh, but I never learned that in school. That black people were
Mm,
here. They said it was the Indians that was here,
no.
before Christopher Columbus came over. And I was like taken aback by when I learned that Crispus Attucks was the first black man in the American Revolution, and then I learned later that he was mulatto. And I was just like blown away because I went to a historically black college and university, and I grew up in a predominantly Caucasian community. But it was just like to learn to write a essay about the first black person in the American Revolution that shot his gun and said that he was a black man and later learned that he was mulatto. I was devastated. So
I
I'm
don't
not
know if he
devastated
was.
to
I don't
hear,
know if he was mulatto. You
but
got
that's what I learned later. And so that's what I want to get to.
yeah,
Like
and
when you
see,
share
and
that
see. Listen,
in books and shit, and it's just changed in 30 years span for me in my education of 18 years. It changed when I got to college.
now let me tell you something about racism and white supremacy. Right? They have a saying, right, that win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. Right? Before they say that he was a full-blooded black man, they say that he was mulatto. You know, being mulatto to them is not it doesn't have make you have close proximity to whiteness to a certain degree, but it's better than being a nigga. And you know, I say that I don't use that terminology, but back then that's how they referred to us as. But
Mhm.
so they will say that he was a mulatto, you know what I mean, as opposed to saying that this was a black man that, you know, he was the first one that shot his gun. You know, I know they talk about whatever his name is, Patrick, I can't remember his last name, that said, "Give me freedom and give me death." You know what I
Mhm.
mean? He said that, "Give me freedom and give me death." But the black man actually went into action and said, "You're gonna give me freedom and you're gonna give me death." And he was the first one to shoot his gun. And let me tell you something, man. That's in our spirit to be warriors. You know, we lead all the wars, whether it's the Revolutionary War, whether it's the war that's happening around the world, World War I, World War II. Black people are always the sacrificial lamb to lead the war and bring home the victory. Whether it's the Tuskegee Airmen, they had the them brothers up in Harlem. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I forget what the platoon was that they had. You know, so there was look at history in the all black platoons and what they did, where it was just all black. You know, you can't deny those stories because there was no overseer handling any of that. None of the missions, none of any of that. It was all handled by Black people. We fought in every war. And not only that, many of us went to other countries and fought in wars. It was a Black man that traveled all the way to Ethiopia and trained them into how to use airplanes and become pilots and fight in wars and how to go through war-to-war combat. A Black man from America went to Ethiopia
Wow.
and they was trying to sign up. There's a documentary where you see a whole list, a whole line. I mean, a Black men in Harlem trying to sign up to go fight in that war, and they came out, as they do with certain bills and legislation prohibiting Black people from going over there helping them fight in that war when they was fighting against the Italians. But it was a Black man that went over there that trained them, and he
Wow.
learned from being in the army over here and went and trained them. So they
Right.
always know whatever we getting involved in, we always excel. So that's a little Black history for you. Go look up that Black man that went over there and helped the Ethiopians to fight in that war. I think it was with Mussolini.
Well, I love it. I love it. I knew this was going to be an awesome, exciting conversation with you,
Oh,
Rahiem,
we just touching
today.
the surface. We ain't done.
Yes, yes, yes. And you are an entrepreneur at heart, and you learned your
Mhm.
purpose in the way that you learned your purpose to be a journalist, to be a award-winning filmmaker, and you have your own clothing line, Wingy. Can you share with us when you got that inspiration to have your own clothing line, and what does Wingy Apparel stand for?
All right. Let me start off first by saying this, right? Just because of the type of person I am, I knew that there's only certain fields I can go into, right? Like I cannot work a traditional job. If you Google my name and you see who I am and what I stand for, you think the dominant society is gonna hire me and put me in a position? Nah, they ain't gonna do that.
No
So
diversity, equity, and inclusion class director for you, right? In
oh
corporate
no,
America.
they ain't gonna have me in that. Nope. You know what I mean? Because they know I'm gonna lead the revolution with the people. We're gonna
Yes.
unionize, we're gonna have a union. We want our rights. We want raises every year. You know what I mean? And listen, man, the inmates is gonna take over the asylum. They already know that. You put me in position of power. But anyway, I say that to say I do a lot of different things. When I say I'm an entrepreneur, it's not the clothing line. That's what you know about, right? Um, but what I do is I have a non-emergency medical transportation business. That's where I
Oh.
make my money at. And I've been doing that for several years. I rarely talk about it, you know what I mean? I never mention the company because what you have is you have people that will and some people try to do it, at one time. Some people try to call up and send them clips of my YouTube videos and you know what I mean, and they try to send it to an individual. He was non-black, but I don't work for him. We contracted for business. You know what I mean, and they run it's an assisted living place
Hmm.
for elderly people and predominantly people that look like us. You know what I mean? So those are the people that my company was taking to their doctor's appointment. You
Mm.
know,
Hmm.
and that
Okay.
I want when I started my business, I wanted to do a service that where I'm serving my community. So we deal with a lot of Medicaid patients, people that's diabetes, chemotherapy, or dialysis, or if you
Oh,
had a
wow.
baby and you getting out of the hospital, you don't have transportation, we send out a van to come pick you up. So I've been doing that for years, a lot of
Oh,
years. I've been
wow.
doing that for a lot of years. So at the height of my business before the pandemic, I wound up having 4 individuals that work for me. You know,
Hmm.
now we kind of like downsize, but we getting ready to transition and start moving freight, and become a owner operator of our own trucking company where we moving freight across the country. And I'm going to be hiring specifically those that are formerly incarcerated. And I don't like to call them convicts. I don't call them ex-felons. I like to
Mhm.
refer to them as returning citizens. And when they
Yes.
return back to society, I'm going to show them that you can make money. You can make up to $100,000 or more a year by doing this trucking and being in the transportation business. When everything else shut down, them trucks were still moving during that pandemic, right? So
Yes, yes.
that's something I do. Now with the wingy apparel, right? I did that right because at this time you had the Gucci, you had Prada, you had all of these high, what they call luxury brand. You had the controversy that was going around with them, with the
Mhm.
blackface, with Gucci discriminating against people, not allowing them into the stores and all of that. And I wanted to create a clothing line, that was made by us, that we can all wear, and that had a specific meaning to it. So the word wingi is a Swahili word that means abundance. And the motto of the company is if you have it in abundance, it's always good to give because no one ever went broke from giving. You know what I mean? So this was like I was making money from this and I was putting it into to other different endeavors. The company it did exceptionally well when we first started it. I kind of I got so much stuff. In fact, I'm looking at a whole bunch of stuff. I've been giving away stuff in the last week, just giving it away because we have a new design, and this summer we're gonna relaunch some new product. But it was like I wanted it to be like a charitable arm of my organization and what I do, because a lot of times, I don't talk about it a lot, but I have people that I help out financially. You know what I mean? A lot of times some people hit me up, man, I was like, how am I help you with that? You know what I mean? Sometimes I just that's above my pay grade. But I
Yes.
do a lot for our people, you know what I mean? Like I was when I did my taxes and stuff like that, I was looking at certain things that I did, and like those GoFundMe's, I blessed a lot of people's GoFundMe, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And that was because of Wingy, you know what I mean? And like I
Yes.
said, you have an abundance is always good to give because you can never go broke. And the reason why you can't go
And
broke, even if you give it all away, you can't go broke because it's
and
gonna
that's the
come
law.
back to you tenfold. You
And
know what I
that's the
mean?
law.
Huh?
Yes. That's the law. That's the
Yeah,
law.
because let me tell you something.
Operating in the law.
I done been broke 3 times and rich 4 times. So that means I'm rich now. But now, you know what I mean. But it's
Yes, yes.
if you know how to get money and you understand how money operates and how money flows, then you'll always be in a position. You might not have it like you always had it, but you know how to get it. You know how to maintain it, and you know how to live. So that is my journey as an entrepreneur. And everything is independent. Like my films,
Yes.
I funded that out of my own pocket. The
Wow.
first one I did out of my own pocket, and I put up all the money. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It was either we're gonna swim or sink. And we swam 9,000 miles and made it to the
Wow.
other side. And the good thing about that is that, I took a chance, and people showed up and they support. So our people will support. The money is there. And it put me in a position to do the second documentary. And during that phrase, a lot of people was telling me, well, why don't you do a fundraiser or GoFundMe? And I did it, but it wasn't successful because I have a problem with asking for money. You know what I mean? Like I just put the link out there and I just sent it and say, let me see,
Yeah.
let it do what it's gonna do. And it
Yeah.
didn't do what I expected, but every little dollar helped. And I'm not opposed to fundraising. You just got to put that time into it. And
Yes.
I didn't have the time to do it like that. So I wound up having to put up the bulk of the money for the second one, and the second one paid for the third one. And that's how you do it as an independent filmmaker. I didn't want to bring along no investors. I had a few people approach me after the success of the first one, and they wanted to put up money. But whoever controls the money purse controls the product, right? And
Yes.
so you had individual. I'm gonna tell you one story. I had an individual that called me and said that they loved this documentary, and they heard that I was in the process of putting out two. And they said, "Let me ask you a question. Is Dr. Umar gonna be in your documentary?" I said, "Yeah, I just finished filming him yesterday." They said, we want to put money behind it, but we don't believe the we don't support his principles, you
Mm.
know." And I was like, "His principles? Pro-black man? What do you mean you don't support his principles?" And this was a black person that was telling me this. And they said, "Well, his stance on the LBGT community." Oh, okay. Well, he ain't talking about that in this documentary. So what's the problem? You know what I mean? And they wanted to put up a substantial amount of money, but I'm not going to be bought or sold. And I was like, all right, that's cool. But yeah, he's going to be in it, you know. And that was the end of that conversation. Another organization that approached me, and this was when I was doing three, and they wanted to pay for the whole entire thing. They asked me what would a budget be to do the next one, and I sent them the top sheet, budget sheet. Um, I didn't know it was an organization at this time, but the guy individually informed me he was a part of an organization, and they helped marginalized communities, right? Be careful
Mm.
with these words, marginalized communities. Now we know the black community is marginalized, right? But we ain't the only marginalized. You know what I mean? When you're a minority, that's considered marginalized, right? um White women are considered marginalized. You know what I mean? White women are considered minorities, right? That's how
Right.
they able to get affirmative action. So you gotta be careful with those trick words, right? Marginalized communities. And I asked him, what community specifically is we talking about? The black community? And he just said something to the effect of the LBG community. It's a marginalized community. And overall, what he wanted to discuss, he asked me, do I know the disparities that exist within the school to prison pipeline when it comes to the LBGT community? And that's something that I should discuss in my documentary. Oh, I don't deal with gender. You know what I mean? Like this is for black people, and we ain't dealing with that. You know what I mean? So that was another situation where, when you're doing the work, there's people that will come to you and want you to support their agenda. And my agenda is black power to the last hour. And so I know I'm
Wow.
ranting and raving, but come on, let's
So
go.
that yeah, so that is, why I think that, having to, to stand for something, to have a foundation of wanting to better yourself and better society as a people, that's what I absolutely love about you. And that your word is bond. What you stand for and how you represent and present is amazing. That's why you have
Thank
won
you.
awards. And what the message that you're delivering, it's a message that's really needed. And what you stand for regarding the social justice. Yes, we do need more people vocalizing in the communities and to bring unity to the community, because that's where, when you just mentioned the word marginalized, that's why I believe is missing for the black community is the unity,
Hmm.
and that's something that is a huge undertaking, by whomever. But being a
Let me say
journalist,
something real quick. Can I say something real quick?
sure.
Because I know, and I tell people this all the time, right? Because a lot of us, and I was one of those people too, right? That we have to unite. We all got to come together. Mm-mm. We ain't all got to come together. It's some people that we don't want around us. You know what I mean? They look like you
Wow.
and me, right?
Hmm.
And you look at organizations, you look at successful movements, right? Sometimes it start with a handful of people, you know, and many shall come and a few should be chosen. The ones that's chosen chose themselves. The people that's not really about it, they're gonna fall to the wayside, right? So you only need a handful of people. You know what I mean? Like you can really, I'm talking about make a significant change by just starting out with a determined idea. One person has that determined idea and get other people to gravitate towards it. You know, remember Marcus Garvey was one individual and he
Yes.
started chapters all around the world and led one of the biggest organizations in America to this day. No organization has been bigger than the UNIA, and that was in the 1920s. Before, I'm sorry, before social media or any of that.
Right.
So, you know what I'm gonna do? Nah, I'm not. I can't cut my phone off because I'm waiting on a phone call.
Right. That's your
But
money maker. That's what I was gonna say. You can't
I'm
cut
no,
off
but
the
you
money.
know what? I did put
Yeah.
it on Do Not Disturb. I don't know why it's still ringing, and I don't want to mess with it real quick.
Right,
But
right. Yes.
yeah, so when we talk about unity, right? We're talking about unity with those of like minds, right? Because
Yes.
there's
Yes.
some people that no matter what, they diametrically opposed to our liberation. You know what I mean? Like if you can sit here and tell me that black people shouldn't get reparations, I don't want you a part of my movement. You know what I mean? Like I don't see where not my movement, but I don't see where me and you can align ourselves together. You know what I mean? And when people you hear black people saying that all we gonna do is just frivolously spend the money, why should we get reparations? And you know, no one was concerned when the Japanese got reparations. No one was concerned when these other ethnic groups get reparations, right, for the harm that it was done to them and them seeking redress. And who cared where they did with their money, you know? And it's an insult to the intelligence of black people saying that we don't know how to take and pool our money together to build institutions. You know, there was a time that you couldn't deliver a baby where you had to have a midwife. And then when it was a hospital, it had to be a black hospital. And those was black doctors. The
Right.
schools was run by all black. So we know what to do with our money. You know, it's not gonna be everybody. Is there gonna be a segment of us that previously spend their money? Absolutely. You know what I
Right.
mean? But that's not here nor there. So
We have
there's so
financial literacy. We have financial literacy for those people who need
yeah,
the ones that
we're
have
gonna have to teach
education too.
we're gonna
Yeah.
have to teach them, but that should not be a prerequisite for us to receive reparations that we have to do this or do that because we don't manage. I'm like, no, you're not gonna put no strings attached. You're gonna give reparations to us as you did to everybody else, and it's gonna be lineage based.
And
So
that's the history goes deep in that conversation. And
mhm,
where you shared some things in this broadcast today alone that a lot of our listeners and the people who are going to watch this don't know. They just don't know. And like you said earlier, knowledge is power.
they're gonna find out today. They're
They
gonna
gonna
find
find
out today.
Yes, yes, yes. And I'm glad that you said like-minded people. If you were to, and I want you to leave us with, you know, what you have going on to let people know. I know you have your Necessary Blackness podcast. Please subscribe. And you can look for, Rahiem Shabazz on all social media outlets. So please do, and get in touch with him, DM and DM something of value. And you've given a lot of value today. Rahim, I appreciate your time. I know your time is your most valuable asset. You're a very busy man. And what do you want to leave the people listening tonight with the Power Fighters Live? What power do you want to leave with us tonight?
Well, our power is not in being an individual. Our power is being a race of people, right? And how we able to overcome adversity is with one another. So what I employ everybody to do, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a filmmaker, that you take someone and you mentor them, right? And you show them and make it that much easier for them as it was for you. You know, everybody has a story where it was hard for them coming in and They wish they would have known this, and it took them 5 years to learn this was the right way to do it. Save somebody that time of frustration and struggle and agony and pain of going through 5 years to finally get it the right way. Make it that much easier for them and see how far they excel. So we have to become the holders and keepers of ourselves and our predicament. And we have to grab someone that we see that has talent, that has passion, and teach them, man, and just watch them go. There's a young lady, right? She probably ain't gonna like me saying this, but anyway, she had a passion for storytelling and filmmaking, right? A hell of a storyteller, right? And she wanted to get into the film industry. And this is my friend. Her name is Maya, right? I'll let you know about her. And she went to NYU, right? And she was learning about filmmaking, right? But they started out teaching about the father of the silent film, right?
Mm-hmm.
We ain't in that era no more. You know what I mean? So she excelled and went to the school, but it was always something missing, right? So
Mm.
I had her
Yeah.
shadow me and come on sets, and I started teaching her and teaching her. Yo, when I tell you, man, this girl right now, she can go from script to screen, she can direct, she can produce, she can edit, she can color correct. And now she has an organization, right? That's a nonprofit. And she only and she's pro-black, black power to the last hour, and she teaches young youth, right? She just
Oh,
sent me a documentary that these young kids made, and she was like, Rahiem, this was possible because of you. You know what I mean? Because the time that I took to teach her, you know what I
yes.
mean? And now 50 young youth done came through her program, you know what I mean? And all of them is telling stories and narratives because everybody got a story to tell, and there's so many dimensions to our story that's going to be
Yes.
told. So that right there, if I ain't do nothing else, if I don't make another film, I don't do nothing else, right? I did that. You know what I mean? And that is going to be bigger than any film that I made previously or any film that I can make in the future. Because that one person impacted over 50 people already in her
Yes.
organization. Like I went to her website and she got individuals that donate, and I donated money to them, and we are helping these kids. But her her um her passion for filmmaking, I spotted that and I seen it, and for storytelling, she was like a real writer, storyteller. And
Yes.
once you have that knack for storytelling, all you need is the eye for filmmaking. You know what I mean? Translate your words into the big screen. And that's what I was able to do because I was a writer. So I wanted to see my words on the big screen. And everything happens for a reason.
Yes.
Like I said, I started out in traditional media writing for magazines. But when everything went online, traditional magazine wasn't popping no more. I went online. I did that for a while, but it started become gossip. You know,
Mm.
the media takeouts and the shade room type of journalism, and grown men don't gossip. I never wanted to do that. You know what I mean? So I was like, leave this alone. You know what I mean? I went into the film. But now look what we got. We got reality TV. The gossip follows you everywhere, but that's that form of entertainment. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And if I wanted to make a whole lot of money, and if it was just about the money, oh, I'll be doing reality TV show. But when it ain't
Mm-hmm.
about the money and it's about, storytelling, it's about your people. For me, it was documentary. So you got to find out, what moves the needle for you, and it was something that I said that was twofold. I could make some money and I could educate my people, and we could start a movement with this, and that's what we did. And I thank people like you because you supported me early on.
Yes.
I remember you hitting me up. What's this thing I hear you doing a documentary? Where can I get it from? Da, 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 da. And I was like, yeah, yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah. And you
You
can
know,
buy it from the Nubian bookstore to this day. That's in Morrow, Georgia.
yeah,
And
you can get it
the
there. You can
and
get it
Madu
at
bookstore in
Mm-hmm.
the Greenbrier Mall. If you're in the Atlanta area,
Yeah,
call up the Nubian Book.
those are my
Yes.
two biggest sellers. Madu Bookstore and Nubian Bookstore. Shout out to Marcus. Shout out to Nia. And they supported me early on.
Yeah.
Early on. I remember they took a chance. I think the first time I walked in there, introduced myself, said, we'll take about 10 of those. you know, in 24 hours, they said, "Could you bring 100?" And it was like that. Like people was just coming to the store. Hey, you got that documentary? And at first, I didn't realize. I'm gonna tell you when I realized how big it was. One day I was going to Kroger, and you know how them everybody always trying to sell you something. Hey yo, I thought the dude was gonna ask me for some money. I'm like, nah, homie, I'm busy. Da da da. He was like, nah, yo, I want to show you this DVD. Yo, I got DVDs. I'm like, nah, I got all those DVDs. And he was like, you ain't got all of them. I said, you probably ain't got what I want. He said, name a DVD. I bet you I got it over here. I said, you got Elementary Genocide? He said, got it right here. I said, you shitting me. I walked over there. I was with one of my
Oh,
I was with one of my friends at the time. She said, please, Rahiem, do not do, please, just don't do nothing. And I said, no, 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 I'm not gonna do that.
oh.
I said, yo, let me see that. I said, yo, this is my movie. Dude looking at me like, man, this ain't your movie. So I took out my business card and I showed it to him. He was like, oh. And so he was like, yo, man, can you bring me some copies to sell? Yeah, I said, yeah, yo, I'm gonna give it to you because he had it written with a marker on there. And I'm like, yo, I'm gonna give you the official whistle, man. You know what I mean? I was like, yo,
Oh
I'll
my
come drop
gosh.
you off 50, man. Don't do that shit. You know what I mean? He was like, "What?" Now, yep. Next day I came back and I used to just supply him. After a while, I was like, listen, you're making a little bit of money now. You're gonna have to start buying these for me. You know what I mean? And we worked out a relationship. Yep.
Oh,
He used to
good.
be right over there, the Kroger on Ralph David Abernathy, right next door is
Yeah.
the T-Mobile. He used to be in front of the T-Mobile store. Yeah,
Oh
so
man.
that's when I was like, yo, they bootleg. You know what I mean? Then in Baltimore, they had a flea market out there. Someone sent me pictures. They like, yo, they
Oh.
got your documentary is bootleg. And I'm like, yo, put me on speakerphone. I cursed them out. Um, Black and Noble in Philadelphia. I sent someone up there to talk to them. Yeah, it was crazy. And after a while, I was just like, you know what? Let them make their money, man. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I, you
You didn't
know,
you didn't knock they hustle, but you helped with
yeah,
someone
but
with they
after
hustle.
a while, I'm like, yo, it's all, and then it just got crazy, all on 125th, and I remember the brother from the Nation of Islam, they had about 4 or 5 stores. I think it's called the Tree of Life, or it's something with life in it,
Mhm.
and he was bootlegging my stuff, man. I called
Oh
him, man,
wow.
and cussed him out because I knew him.
Oh
Well, I
wow.
didn't know him, but we knew of each other.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, he was real upset. He was like, brother, you ain't got to use that baby language with me. And at the end of the conversation, when I calmed down, we wound up doing an agreement where I started sending him DVDs and he was wholesaling it. I was giving him the wholesale price and stuff like that.
Right.
So a lot of times it wound up working out. You can't catch everybody. And that, and at one time that was the thing to do. You know what I mean? Like, I ain't gonna
Yeah.
act like I ain't buy a bootleg movie before. You know what I mean? But when it's your
Yeah.
own, oh man, I
You
was
didn't knock
missing
they hustle.
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Exactly, exactly. So all those growing pains in your business and in life,
Mhm.
I do, thank God for you and that you were able to make it through, find your purpose, find your power, and have that vision to help somebody,
Yeah,
who now has a legacy now through you for being who you are. So thank you so much for being that man that gives and that has that heart to give.
yeah. And you know what's crazy, right? When she told me to go to her website, my friend Maya, right? In her about section, she talks about herself, right? And she talks about how I was instrumental in showing her, how to um write her pitch. You know what I mean? Like I said, she can do from script to screen. Like I'm talking about develop the concept,
Yes.
from writing a small synopsis to doing a trailer to shooting a movie to producing. She can do everything. And she talks about, and she said I was instrumental in that, you know what I mean? But I used to always tell her, right, like, nah, don't put my name on it. Don't put my name on it. This, that, and the other, because she always tell me what she wanted to do, and I was like,
Yes.
yeah, you put my, and we would joke, and I'd be like, yeah, you put my name, that's gonna mess up your donors. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, listen, if anybody feel the need to not donate to me because I stand with you and you taught me what I'm doing today, then I don't need their money. You know what I mean? So I was,
Wow.
it
And
was
see,
worth helping you. You know what I mean? So I respect people
yes.
like that because, I showed her the aspect of filmmaking and developing it. You know what I mean? Like she had the talent for the writing,
Right.
and then she's a beast with the fundraising. You know what I mean? That's a whole nother aspect. You know what I mean? And that's something that me and her is probably going to work on because I'm getting ready to start a nonprofit. So
Mm-hmm.
I got the paperwork and everything. I just need to sit down with her and solidify a few things, and she's going to show me how to raise the money and get my nonprofit off of the ground. So this was never nothing discussed initially, but by helping
Yes.
other people, this is what I'm talking about. It comes full circle. It comes back around to you. You know what I mean? So I'm looking for the next person I can help and see what type of blessings I can get from them. Because it's always each one teach one in order to reach one. You know?
Amen. Amen. I love it. I love it, Rahiem.
Look at you. You act like you in church. She said, Amen, amen. I ain't even begin to preach the gospel. How much time we got left? We gotta go through Matthew, Luke, John.
And you don't work with all of them, okay? You Maya's your first disciple, okay? So
I
she's
need 11
gonna
more.
you need to let him more.
Yeah.
So
But you know
yes.
what? It's another one, but I ain't gonna mention his name. He was one of
Oh,
my disciples, but he turned out to be a Judas.
oh Lord.
You know,
Well,
you always gotta have a Judas.
we hey, God made us all. That's what I say, and there's a reason that we have, the principles and the laws. And by you being a person that gives of your heart, the law of reciprocity has come to bless you. And
Oh
I
yeah,
thank you for
absolutely.
being a blessing to me today, calling you up. And I'm like, Black history. Oh man, who can I get that be a powerful conversation that'll deliver? And you delivered, like, oh my gosh, tenfold this conversation. I've learned a lot from you. I see your vision. I know what you've had to go through to get your awards. I know that what you are doing in community to educate those and to make a difference. You are truly making a difference because Martin Luther King Jr., he died because he was really in part of the movement for the Poor People's Campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a history lesson that I did never see in the history books. I said, "What you mean he got shot because he was helping these brothers that had, gotten killed in working their job for the sanitation, and he's out there, help trying to help the families and trying to speak up about leveling the financial playing field and the Poor People's Campaign. And the Poor
Mm-hmm.
People's Campaign is still going on to this day,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not on that level as we saw with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But
And
the Poor People's Campaign is still out there. And I
yeah.
almost wonder, it's like, oh, was that the reparations and the Poor People's Campaign? Is not the same thing, but it's the similar conversation. I'll say
Yeah,
that.
I think we're in different times. Back then, people was more unified, right? They knew
Yes.
and recognized who the open enemy was, right? Now, open enemy, all you gotta do is give them money or put them in a position of power, and they're gonna sell everybody out. You know what I mean? So it's different. You know what I mean? Because you could be a part of the poor people campaign, right? But the only thing that's separating you from the open enemy is money. And so once they give you that money, then now you're on this side. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
You
that's a
know,
different
everybody, you
conversation.
know, we live in a capitalistic society. You know, we need money in order to function, in order to survive. You know, it takes money, you know what I mean, to even start a movement. But, you know, you got to be an individual that stands on business and want to be on the right side of history where you still going to maintain your morals, your principles. You know what I mean?
Yes,
My elder, right, Professor James Small and Kaba Kennedy, they talk about the VIPs, your value, your interests, and your principles. You know what I
yes,
mean? Like you got to maintain that, man, no matter what. You know what I mean? You can't wither, you can't deviate from that, and you know that's just who I am. You know what I mean? I am the same individual that people that know me. They be like, "Yo, Rod, you have not changed, not one iota. You still look the same. You still talk the same. Like I've been talking this talk for years. You know what I mean?
yes.
So I'm not switching up. I'm not switching up.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm Black Power to the last hour, man, for my people,
Yes.
and
And
I'm
you
not gonna
just
have it
taking
no other way.
You taking the helm from Carter G. Woodson, as he's gone before us, our ancestor who's gone before us, who created this platform for this month to be celebrated. But as we all know, we celebrate 365, 24/7
Right.
Black
That's right.
history. So thank you so much, Raheem, for your time. And thank you
Thank you.
for sharing your knowledge and giving me grace and getting to know you even more, providing this history lesson that I had no idea existed, and being the entrepreneur that you are, and the wingy abundance Swahili, teaching them a new language and all of that. Thank you so much. And as we always share with you, we do be do and have the greatness that you desire, because the greatness is in you. Thank you for joining Power Fridays Live. We'll see you
Thank
next
you.
week for another amazing conversation with an entrepreneur. The Legacy and Love series, the Love and Legacy series of Power Fridays Live. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
All right. Peace.